Hi, this is Iqbal Khan from Alachisoft. Today I will talk about 5 steps to getting started with NosDB. NosDB is a NoSQL database for .NET. It is open source under the Apache 2.0 license. It stores JSON documents. NosDB is extremely fast and scalable, and it also provides you a lot of flexibility through its JSON documents for rapid development. So let's get started. Step number 1 is to install NosDB on your database servers. You should have a minimum of 2 database servers for both reliability and scalability purposes. And a typical database server is a dual CPU, 8-core machine, 16 gigabytes or more RAM, and 1 gigabit or faster network card. The disk storage is based on your need. NosDB itself doesn't take a lot of space, but of course it's based on the amount of data that you're going to store. Windows Server 2012 R2 or later is needed, and .NET 4.6, 4.5 or 4.0 is needed, and PowerShell 4.0 or later is needed, and Microsoft Web Deploy 3.5 or higher is needed. This last one is for the REST API. The database clients can be Windows 2012 or 2008 for .NET and Java can also run on Unix. By the way, you can run NosDB on Windows 8.1 and 10 as well, but of course not for production. Let's go ahead and create a database cluster. I'm going to use this tool called NosDB Management Studio right here. I have it running here. So it's an Explorer style tool, very easy to use. Let's go ahead and create a new cluster. Every cluster is named, so I'm going to name my cluster Demo Cluster. The authentication options are Windows Authentication and NosDB Authentication. I will pick Windows Authentication. Hit Next. Shard 1 is my first shard. I will pick a primary server for this shard. And let me go ahead and now add another shard here. And let me pick a different primary server for this shard. This is 108. And I have 2 shards, each with a primary server. And I'm done. Okay, now that I have this, let me go ahead and add a secondary server in each shard. So I will make the 108, which is the primary for shard 2, as a secondary in shard 1. And I'll do the same with shard 2. I'll make the primary for shard 1 as a secondary in shard 2. You can also add dedicated servers as secondaries. Secondaries are used for replicas, so only read operations are sent to them. The updates are always done to the primary. Okay, now that I've built a cluster, I'm going to now go ahead and create a database. I'm going to create a Northwind database. I have a script that will do that, and I will run PowerShell. So let me go ahead and start PowerShell from here. Let me connect with the database cluster, and since I'm not local to that database server, I will specify the IP address, and username is admin, password is okay. I'm connected to the database cluster. Now let me run this script. This script comes with the NosDB. So if you come to the samples in NosDB in program files, go to the data, JSON, take that path, and type northwind.ps1, and that is your script running. Let me show you that script quickly. So if I let me open that script in Notepad here. As you can see, it's a standard PowerShell script. It just goes through and creates a database and a bunch of collections, and then imports data through an import data script of NosDB. Okay, I'm still waiting for the database to be created. Okay, it looks like it's almost done creating and importing data. There it is. So I've just created a Northwind database. Let me come here and refresh, and I can see all of the collections here. Now that I have done this, what's the next step? The next step is to test the database cluster. You want to test it to make sure everything is working. I will open the statistics. These are all perfmon counters on each of the database server, and I'm going to also open this NosDB monitor tool, which is a dashboard style tool that lets you monitor a lot of different things. I'm going to come here, slightly below here. Okay. Now that I have this, I'm going to run this tool called stress test tool. It is part of the PowerShell environment. So if I go to the databases and I go into the Northwind, now I'm in the database scope, so I can run this thing called test stress. This is a tool that talks to all the servers in the cluster. You'll see the activity will start in a minute. It's going to start talking there. So it's talking to this primary of shard 1 and the primary of shard 2, and they are then going to replicate the data to their replicas. So the replication happens in the background. So this kind of demonstrates not only that the database is working in your environment, but also you can run multiple instances of the stress test tool to see how fast and how scalable it is in your environment. And you can run multiple instances from different machines. Let me now go ahead and use some SQL querying. So when you come here and say select top 1000, you'll open this SQL window. This is all JSON based output. I can come here and this is a JSON document right here. Let me also view this as a tabular output. I can come and highlight multiple rows and copy with headers or copy, and I can come here and do this. This is just a tab separated data, like in a CSV format. So I can issue a lot of SQL queries to search documents, insert, update, delete, to access all the data in here. So I'm able to now test the database. I'm going to now go ahead and stop this. And the next step is to go ahead and use the database in my application. So again, I'm going to go to the samples that come with NosDB. So if I come to NosDB right here, samples, application, there are a bunch of application samples. So the first one I'll pick is a CRUD without SQL. So if I open this sample, you'll see that it's just a standard console application. At the beginning of the program, it connects to the database. It does a database equals client.nosdb.initialize database, and there's a connection string, and then it just gets a collection. So it gets the products collection, and it can add product objects to it. Right here, it's doing insert documents. It's inserting all these products to the product collection. So that is how you update without using SQL. If you wanted to use SQL, I could use CRUD with SQL. With an SQL situation, you could again do that same database, and you could either essentially do an insert query. You can have insert query here, have all these parameters passed, and then run execute non-query here. This will go ahead and insert that document. You can also do a select query, in which case you will have to do execute reader. Instead of doing execute non-query, you'll have to do execute reader. It gives you back an collection reader object, and you can loop over it, and then you can do a reader.get object, or you can get individual columns from the reader. So this is a very straightforward interface for using a reader interface to use SQL or do a non-query. You can also do execute scalar, where you have group by and other types of queries. So that's one part of that's the .NET API. You can also use LINQ. So I have a sample here which will use LINQ. So LINQ is, again, if you guys are comfortable searching and manipulating the data with LINQ, you can do that. Again, you connect with the database, and you get a product. Let's say you get a collection, and you transform that into a as queryable collection, and that gives you an iQueryable interface, which is as you know, a LINQ query. So you can use that, for example, you can loop over this and fetch individual objects, product objects. You can also do insert statements here. So you can do a product object, product, and you can product update table dot insert, and you pass it the product object. So again, you can fetch data or update data through LINQ. And finally, you can use ADO.NET. With ADO.NET, there's again an ADO.NET sample that is provided. So you can open that, and if you come here, you'll do a database connection dot equals factory dot create connection. Then you'll do connection dot open. Then you do factory dot create command, and you do an insert statement here, and you can execute non-query to get that. And the same way, you can go and fetch data. For example, you could do database connection equals factory dot create connection, and this time you do an execute reader, and you'll loop over it. Again, standard ADO.NET. The benefit of using ADO.NET is that you can then plug in NosDB into third-party controls, so third-party controls can start talking to NosDB as well. Finally, let me show you various integrations of NosDB. Number one, you can manage all this stuff from within Visual Studio. So I have a Visual Studio opened here. You can come here into the other windows, and you do the NosDB Explorer. By the way, I have installed this. If I go to the extension, I have installed this NosDB management package, which is a Visual Studio extension that you will need to install. Once I have that, I can connect to an existing, let's say I have this existing database cluster that I can connect to, and I've got all this, and I've got all the database also and the collections also. Let me go and do a top 1000 rows. It's going to show me all of that here within the Visual Studio. I can again do all this same things that I've been doing from within the NosDB Management Studio. So you can stay within Visual Studio and manage your NosDB clusters and databases and run SQL queries. So you can test all your SQL queries before you put them in the code right here in the same place. So finally, I have to show you how NosDB integrates with Power BI. So Power BI is a tool from Microsoft, as you know. So it's really powerful in terms of how it lets you visualize data. So I'm going to connect Power BI through an OData interface. It's a REST API based interface, and I will specify one of my servers, NosDB data clustered Northwind. So I'm specifying Northwind as the database name. It's a clustered database as compared to a standalone database. So this will show you all of the tables from within. I'm going to select all of them minus the NosDB test collection, which is created by the stress test tool, and I will say load, and it's loading all those collections as tables into Power BI. And I have them here. The next thing I'm going to do is manage relationships. I'm going to delete all the existing relationships and create a new one. So I will go ahead and say customers has a one-to-many with orders, and the column to do this is customer ID. As you can see, it's one-to-many. Let me do one more. I'm going to say employees. Where are employees? There are no employees. Okay, I didn't get the employees. That's fine. So I've got this collection. Now I'm going to come here, and I will say I want to get the country, and the orders, I want to get the order ID. So I will come here and move this to the field area. Right here. And if I open it, you can see that it is now showing me how many orders that customers have placed from different countries. So there are a lot of different things that you can do, and my purpose is not to teach you about Power BI, but to just show you that it works with NosDB. Okay, so the next steps are basically go ahead and download NosDB Enterprise. It's a 60-day fully working trial. Or contact us for a personalized demo. We'll be more than happy to understand your application's needs and make recommendations. You can also contact our tech support for hands-on help. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.